episode 89 of Piv's NXT Point of View podcast. My name is Bill Pivots. So this week, on this episode at least, I'm going to review NXT TakeOver Toronto. Hands down, best show of the weekend. So much better than Survivor Series, and probably better than Raw, even though I didn't watch it, but I'll definitely lump that in there as well. The show pretty much looked like it was sold out. The whole crowd, everything was a great environment. Yeah, let's get right down to it. The show started with like a history of WWE in Toronto video. It then transitioned into the Dusty Rhodes Classic, then led that into the Rude Dillinger match and the DIY Revival feuds, Mickie James and Asuka, and then the main event. So they all got video recaps of what's going on. Show kicked off with, obviously, Ty Dillinger versus Bobby Roode. Bobby Roode continues to amaze with his entrances. I love it. He had a fucking choir singing his theme song, and then the crowd obviously joined in, and you couldn't even hear the choir at this point. The announcer didn't mention where Roode was from, but he did with Dillinger, which is weird because they're both from both from Toronto. Everyone knows that. I guess they didn't want Roode to get babyface cheers more than he usually does, but it's interesting nonetheless. During the match, Roode begged Ty to stop his attack, and he held up like his two hands opened up like stop, but obviously he was all 10 fingers up for 10. And then Ty stomped on his hands, and he was like flexing them, kind of like how Ty does, and the crowd was loving that because they did it at the same time. Very comical, which is okay in the first match. Ty blocked a punch in the corner. He began his comeback later on. He set up for the tiebreaker, but Roode left the ring. He then hit a superplex. This was Roode, or as Corey Graves called it, the Glorious Plex. Roode then mocked Ty by pulling down his own knee pad and doing the 10 taunt. He went for the tiebreaker himself, but Dillinger countered, and he got a close near fall after a super kick. Crowd was buying into the near falls, hoping that Ty Dillinger would get a big win here. He countered a roll up and locked in the sharpshooter. The crowd popped huge. Roode threw Ty into the post and hit the Impaler DDT to get the win. Great opening match. Just as I thought that they would entertain two Canadian boys. The feud, I like it a lot. The comic spots was pretty funny as well with the 10 taunts early in the match. And Ty Dillinger had some great near falls that you almost thought he was actually going to win this match, but it's obviously Roode going into the main event, or the top tier at least, so he's getting the win. I don't think it would have hurt Roode if he lost this match just to give Ty a win, and then he could have beat him on the next episode of NXT or something like that. But yeah, it was good nonetheless, and obviously we were going to see at least one sharpshooter while they're in Canada this weekend. Oh, by the way, it kind of toned down as we got later in the show, but there were so many goddamn camera cuts in this match. It was like a 10th grader edited this for a video project in school. So many jump cuts. Every time they took a step, it was just moving to another camera angle, and it just frustrated the shit out of me. Roode left the ring, and Ty was kind of just left standing there thinking about the match, and he got a very big ovation as he was still in the ring. We got a Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic recap. And then the finals was TM61 versus Authors of Pain. Paul Ellering was in a cage above the ring. Little into the match, Akam had Thorne on his shoulders and began to climb the structure that held Ellering up. Akam fell, Thorne turned around and dove onto the Authors of Pain. Probably the most exciting thing in this match. Crowd was actually pretty quiet throughout too, so it really doesn't help because I don't think they were invested in either team. The way Authors of Pain have been dominating everyone, they defeated TM61 just a few weeks ago. So they were kind of holding their breath for the tag team title match. Miller got the hot tag, but the crowd really didn't seem to care. He got a near fall after a nice moonsault. TM61 countered the double powerbomb spot into Hurricanranas. Thorne dove over the top onto Akam and his tag team partner. Ellering at this point dropped a chain, and somehow the referee didn't hear it hit the ring at all. Rezar went to use it, but Thorne blocked it, and the chain just ended up going flying right into the crowd. Authors of Pain recovered, though, and hit the last chapter to get the win. I said it throughout the tournament, this has been a very big letdown compared to last year's tournament. Didn't really care about this match. Authors of Pain I'm invested in. I like their act. I can care less about TM61. You guys know my opinions on that. Beginning was entertaining with the big high spot, but then it slowed down and the match got very, very boring. William Regal and Triple H came out and shook Ellering and Authors of Pain's hand. That was very awkward seeing them be chummy with Authors of Pain. And I don't know why, because they just tried to cheat. I don't know if they did notice that or not. I don't know if they would be shaking the hands of guys that tried to cheat to win. The two beasts, they looked just like out of place holding this giant trophy in honor of Dusty Rhodes. We then got a DIY Revival feud recap vid. I think it started all the way back before TakeOver Brooklyn. And I kind of forgot it was a 2 out of 3 falls match, but remembering, I remember, got me a little more excited for this match. DIY were in control first, but Dash already distracted the ref, allowing Dawson to take advantage. Early and often these guys were doing that. Gargano went for a dive through the ropes, but the Revival caught him with the Shatter Machine and got the first fall. They waited a little bit, but the Revival kept the pressure on Gargano as soon as he got up. He created some separation and went for the tag, but Dash distracted the ref again, and he didn't see Ciampa get the tag. And this is why I love the Revival. They do so much little stuff like... Yeah, that makes sense. They do so much little stuff like this that it just pisses you off as a fan. Like, how does the referee not get this? But they're so smart about it, too, that you can't really hate them, if that makes any sense. Ciampa did finally get the tag. He hit Dawson with 3 German suplexes, another reference to a Canadian wrestler. Revival went for a spike pile driver, but DIY countered. Ciampa and Gargano connected with their super kick, needed a head, and got the fall to tie the match. Gargano kicked Dash from the apron and hit Dawson with a jumping DDT for near fall. Revival landed a nice uppercut German suplex combo. Dash grabbed the title. He handed it to Dawson, and he actually used it to block a kick from Gargano. And then he locked in the same submission hold that he made him tap in Brooklyn. But this time, after a little time of fighting the submission, he was able to reach the ropes. Revival went for DIY's finisher, but Gargano ducked, and Dash actually super kicked Dawson. DIY then hit the Shatter Machine, and for some reason that wasn't the finish, because they only got a near fall. Dawson wasn't the legal man at this point, so Dash took out Ciampa and took out Gargano's legs. They went back and forth with some near falls and roll-ups. Gargano locked in a modified crossface. Dawson went to block it, but Ciampa caught him and landed in an armbar. At this point, both men were in submissions, and they reached out and held each other's hands like they were falling off and trying to save themselves from the Titanic. Dash eventually had the tap, and DIY are your new tag team champions. Holy shit. That was a tag team match. It was so much better than the Brooklyn match, and that's hard for me to say because, 1, I was in attendance in that match. 2, that was a great match with all the near falls, especially at the end. And I don't know if you guys saw on my Twitter, I posted my ranking of the Revival tag team matches. I put American Alpha the Revival 1 first, this match 2. I think I'm going to have to put their match from Brooklyn 3, and then American Alpha Revival 2, the last of the 4 matches. But you watch any of them, and they're great matches. I mean, with the Revival, they're owed a rematch, so I guess we're going to see DIY Revival 3, and I'm not going to complain. That was a great match, and I'm assuming their future matches are going to be just as good. We got a video of the women's match, mostly with Asuka footage, her dominating the women's division since her debut. And then it led to the 4th match of Asuka versus Mickie James. And I was kind of hoping Mickie James would get new music. Her old music kind of sucks. Mickie sent Asuka to the outside and then held the rope open for her to come back in. And after some submission attempts and kicks, Asuka sent Mickie to the outside and did the same with the hip attack actually, and did the same thing to hold the rope open. This time, as Mickie was coming into the ring, Asuka took a cheap shot and landed another hip attack, knocking her down. Mickie went for a super kick on the outside, but Asuka caught her in an ankle lock. She then trapped it and then landed a German suplex on the outside, and that was nasty. Asuka was actually acting pretty heelish throughout the match. Mickie absorbed some kicks, and she actually locked in the Muda lock. Mickie slapped Asuka hard across the face, and after a flapjack, she landed a seated senton for a near fall. Asuka kicked out of she reached the ropes after receiving a Mick kick. 2 rolled around a little bit as Asuka tried locking in the Asuka lock. She then rolled over, getting the advantage, and locked in the chicken wing, and Mickie James tapped pretty quickly to the NXT Women's Champion. Even with the obvious outcome of this match, obviously Asuka was going to win. It was actually a fun match. It was good seeing Mickie James back in a WWE ring. She looks just as good. And the early part of it was more mind games, the two trying to get into each other's heads, psyching them out, and a game of one-upswomanship, not one-upsmanship. Entertaining. I liked it a lot, and I definitely would like to see Mickie James more often, whether it's NXT or Raw. And hopefully it leads to something a little more long-term, or maybe even a Hall of Fame induction, because she definitely deserves it. Great match. After the match, though, Mickie went to shake Asuka's hand, but Asuka, all she did was just raise the women's championship in front of her face. I told you, she was acting heelish this whole time. And it actually makes sense for Asuka to turn a little bit, not full-fledged heel, but I think if Ember Moon's going to be the next one to challenge her, that they're going to have to turn her a little bit more, because the fans are still cheering her. So after all that, after the video packages, it was time for our main event of Shinsuke Nakamura versus Samoa Joe. Bell rang, and Nakamura landed some kicks immediately. He then went to the outside and kicked Joe over the barricade, and they fought into the crowd a little bit. Joe landed an enziguri in the ring and then slowed things down. He planted Nakamura from the corner. He lifted Shinsuke up, crossed his legs, and then dropped him right on his knees. Very cool. I've never actually seen that before. So kind of like a reverse pile driver. He held him up, but bent his knees underneath and then just dropped him. Joe then locked in a couple submissions and a nice dive to the outside. Nakamura then fought back with some knees and kicks, and way to sell there, Nakamura. Good job. Graves actually had to cover it up some point, saying that adrenaline and something was overpowering him. Joe ducked a boot and landed a senton splash of his own. Nakamura then escaped the Boston Crab, landed some more knee strikes. He escaped from the Muscle Buster and hit the Kinshasa to the back of the head. Joe went for a sleeper hold and hit a German suplex, and a dragon suplex and a straight jacket suplex, back to back to back. He landed another Kinshasa, though, Nakamura did. He then went to the outside. They fought a little bit by the stairs. Joe kicked Nakamura below the belt, slammed onto the steel steps with the Uranagi, and he hit the Muscle Buster to win. So Samoa Joe is the first ever two-time NXT champion. Was not expecting that result at all. As you know, my predictions, I predicted Nakamura to win, and he would go on to, Samoa Joe would go on to the main roster. But Samoa Joe is the champion again. Maybe Nakamura is the one going to the main roster, and they're building another babyface for Samoa Joe when Hideo Itami returns, maybe. I was surprised because there's really not much more Samoa Joe can do. He's already been NXT champion. He's had great matches for the last 5 TakeOver specials. This match in particular, though, it wasn't my favorite. This feud's been going on for a while, so maybe I'm just a little oversaturated with these two. And if Joe's champion again, we're going to get another TakeOver special, because I think, from what I heard, there's going to be one in January, the night before the Royal Rumble. So if they do that, it's only 2 months later. I think they can get away with it. If it was any later, like it was the next TakeOver wasn't until WrestleMania, I think they would have had to struggle a little bit. But 2 months, Nakamura either wins, loses, I don't know. Maybe he loses and then appears in the Royal Rumble the night after. We'll see. But I was just surprised at the result. The match, a little more of a brawl than a fight, or than a wrestling match. So it kind of changed things up a little bit from what we're used to with these two, considering the story build-up. But it wasn't my favorite match that these two have had. Overall, I went 3-2 in my predictions. I went babyface heavy and wanted a TM6-1 and Nakamura to win, but I was able to get the other 3 matches there. Great show, though. Surprising results. 3 amazing matches, 1 great one, and then a all-right tag team match. But overall, another TakeOver special. I don't want to say it was a great, one of the best TakeOver specials, because they kind of all blend together at some point. Brooklyn stands out. Obviously, I've been there. A couple of the others. But if you go back to the old NXT days with, Tyson Kidd, Ty Dillinger, Sami Zayn, Neville, those were some great main events. The 4-way match those 4 had. The Bo Dallas Neville ladder match was awesome. The Sami Zayn Neville matches were great. I don't know if it's because most of it was their homegrown talent or smaller guys and not indie guys. Granted, Neville and Zayn are, but it just seems a little oversaturated with Nakamura and Joe and Finn Balor, that those old TakeOver specials kind of lose their shine. But if you go back, they're just as good as they are now. Granted, tag team division's nowhere near where it is now, but the main events and the top stars were just as good, at least. So just a little word association with the 5 matches. Opening match was fun. Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, meh. DIY and Revival, amazing. Women's match, entertaining. And the NXT title match was brutal, in a good way. More of a, like I said, a brawl than a fight. So with that, I'm going to get into this week's episode of NXT. There are going to be spoilers, so if you don't want to hear it, you can end the show here. Before you do that, follow me on Twitter at bpiv_sports. So with the last couple of weeks, we've seen the build to Liv Morgan, Aaliyah, Billie Kay, and Peyton Royce. Last week, we saw Ember Moon make the save for them, and they told him to go find a third partner. So they had that match before TakeOver. It was Ember Moon, Liv Morgan, and Aaliyah, and they defeated Billie Kay, Peyton Royce, and Daria Baronato. Liv was out first, Aaliyah, and she is Canadian, so she got a nice pop, and Ember Moon was the final. Ember Moon's team obviously won, with Ember Moon getting the win after the lunar eclipse, the flipping stunner. It doesn't seem like it's going to be the greatest show, so if you do plan on skipping NXT, I don't blame you. It's probably going to be a lot of video highlights and still picture packages for the TakeOver event. So that's going to be NXT this week. Don't be surprised if I don't review it, because there's not going to be much, only if you didn't see TakeOver. All right, spoiler alert over. That is this week's episode of Piv's NXT Point of View podcast. Like I said, follow me on Twitter at bpiv_sports. Rate, review, subscribe, comment, do all that fun stuff to the show on YouTube. Subscribe to the playlist so you'll be notified when new shows post. I may be back at the end of the week. If not, I'll be back next week with episode 90. Peace.